Are those rights being violated by the WNBA? And at the very least, there's a portion of this that says maybe WNBA leadership should at least have to go sit in front of some people and answer some very uncomfortable questions.
Something historic just happened, something that could shatter the very foundation of the WNBA. The Wall Street Journal, one of the most respected publications in the world, dropped a legal bombshell on the league, raising a question that fans and insiders have been whispering for months. Is Caitlin Clark being subjected to civil rights violations on the court? This isn't just a rough game or a few missed calls. We're talking about the possible erosion of federal workplace protections, with Caitlin Clark at the epicenter of the storm. And now, the world is watching, because this just turned into more than basketball. Behind the glossy promotional videos and carefully curated PR statements, the league's leadership is being accused of something unthinkable: negligence protecting their brightest star. The right to a non-hostile work environment is guaranteed by law, not just in corporate America, but in professional sports too. Yet as Caitlin Clark is repeatedly slammed to the floor, elbowed in midair, and left unprotected by referees, the silence from the top is deafening. Where are Kathy Engelbert and Adam Silver? Because if this continues, it's not just Caitlin's body that's at risk, it's the very legitimacy of the league.
Because Kathy Engelbert and Adam Silver, it seems to be nothing to see here. Please move along. Now, I've seen a lot of fans just come out and say, hey, they're assaulting her, it's battery, yada, yada, yada. And the WNBA has turned a blind eye to this treatment.
And here's the twist that has fans fuming. The WNBA isn't just ignoring the abuse, it's profiting from it. Clark is arguably the league's most valuable asset since Diana Taurasi's prime. She's brought in viewers, money, attention, and relevance. But when it comes to protecting her on the court, league officials are acting like she's expendable. That contradiction is fueling outrage, and legal analysts are now warning. This isn't just morally wrong. It might be criminal.
The league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Miss Clark, treating its greatest asset as if she were a PR headache.
In a league that claims to champion equality and justice, the silence speaks volumes. It's not just about Caitlin Clark being fouled. It's about a young woman being left to fend for herself in an environment that is, by all legal definitions, becoming hostile. The Wall Street Journal's report is not clickbait. It's a legal warning shot. And if the WNBA doesn't take it seriously, the next headlines might not come from ESPN. They might come from a federal courtroom. Just when you thought the situation couldn't get worse, fans are calling it what it is: assault, battery, repeated, targeted abuse, while referees look away and coaches say nothing. In any other setting, this would spark outrage, investigations, maybe even arrests. But in the WNBA, it's brushed off as just part of the game, and that's the problem. Let's talk about what we're seeing night after night. Caitlin Clark, the face of this new generation of women's basketball, is being hunted on the court. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Whether it's a blindside shove, a midair collision, or a blatant elbow to the ribs, the attacks are too consistent, too specific to be coincidence. Yet time and time again, officials swallow their whistles, creating an environment where abuse isn't punished, it's normalized. Veteran journalist Sean McLean broke it down in painful detail. Clark isn't just a good player, she's the economic engine of the league. Her presence has driven viewership, sold out arenas, and sparked a national conversation around women's basketball. And what has the league done in return? Turned their backs on her. That's not just a bad look, that's a betrayal. And here's where the stakes go nuclear. Legal experts are starting to compare this to workplace negligence. If the WNBA continues to ignore repeated physical targeting of its most marketable star, they could face a civil rights lawsuit that rocks the sports world. Think about that, a legal case that could force league leadership to testify under oath about what they did or didn't do to protect Caitlin Clark. This isn't just about bruises and sore limbs anymore. This is about accountability. While WNBA execs smile for cameras and deny there's a problem, fans see something very different when Caitlin Clark is out of the game. The energy shifts, the physicality fades. Suddenly, teams stop playing like they're in a steel cage match and start playing actual basketball. That alone tells a story, one that confirms what critics have said all along. The excessive aggression isn't part of the game, it's part of a pattern. When Caitlin Clark steps off the court, the contrast is almost comical. No elbows, no body checks, no flying forearms. The games look like what the sport is supposed to be: competitive, not combative. And yet, this difference is so blatant, it feels like confession.
We're watching in front of our very eyes how differently these teams are treating the Indiana Fever without Caitlin Clark on the court. I mean, let's just be real. It's been much different. The level of physicality has very obviously ratcheted down.
Multiple analysts have studied the footage and come to the same conclusion. Something changes when Clark is present. Opponents ramp up the violence, the intensity, the uncalled fouls. It's not strategy, it's sabotage. And the worst part? The league is letting it happen, night after night. This isn't paranoia, it's documented reality. Coaches, players, analysts, and fans are all seeing the same thing. When Clark plays, it's WWE. When she doesn't, it's basketball. And still, league officials act like they don't see it. But if the physical play around one player changes that drastically depending on her presence, how can anyone say this is fair?
Yet she routinely faces intentional hits, excessive fouling, and uncalled abuse while referees look away. Teammate Sophie Cunningham said what fans already know, quote, "The star player of the league is not being protected."
Now let's talk numbers, because the financials tell a story the league can't deny. Caitlin Clark has become a money-printing machine for the WNBA. Since her debut, subscription numbers have skyrocketed by 366%. Engagement on league apps, up 613%. Merchandise sales, a jaw-dropping 601%. This isn't hype, it's a business transformation. She's not just a player, she's a brand. And that brand is lifting the entire league. But while her jersey sells out and her highlights dominate social media, she's getting rocked on the hardwood with little to no protection. That's not just bad management, it's exploitation. Fans aren't blind. They see the fouls that go uncalled. They see the bruises, the missed games, the whisper excuses. They're asking the same question over and over. How can the WNBA benefit from her presence but refuse to protect her? It's a question no one at the top seems willing to answer. Even her own teammates like Sophie Cunningham have spoken out. The star player of the league is not being protected, she said. And that says it all. When teammates start going public, it means the silence in the league office has become unbearable. 3 injuries, 10 missed games, 1 All-Star event skipped, and still no suspensions for the players dishing out the damage. Where's the accountability? Medical professionals are sounding the alarm bells. The kind of hits Caitlin Clark has taken aren't just painful, they're dangerous. 1 wrong fall, 1 badly placed elbow, and her career could be over. Think about that. A once-in-a-generation player who's already changed the sport could have it all taken away because the league refuses to enforce basic safety. This isn't a scare tactic. This is real. Analysts have pointed to past hits that nearly resulted in injuries and spinal trauma. These aren't ordinary fouls. They're potential career enders. And the referees, they keep letting it happen. Legal experts now say this meets the criteria for a hostile workplace. Systematic targeting, excessive physical contact, verbal harassment, and no meaningful intervention. If this were any other job, a lawsuit would already be underway. The Supreme Court's own rulings back this up. Hostile work environments don't need to be racially or sexually motivated to be illegal. If the conduct is severe and pervasive, it qualifies. And in Caitlin Clark's case, it's both. The legal door is wide open, and the WNBA might be walking right through it. And yet, somehow, the WNBA continues to act as if the law is optional, as if Caitlin Clark's bruises are just marketing collateral, and the silence from league leadership is merely business as usual. But this is where precedent matters. Because when the Supreme Court ruled in Harris versus Forklift Systems in 1993, they made it crystal clear a hostile work environment isn't just about what happens. It's about the environment it creates. The moment an employee dreads going to work, feels unsafe, or begins to lose opportunities because of unchecked abuse, that's when the law steps in. Now, let's be honest. If Caitlin Clark were an accountant being shoved by co-workers, ignored by her manager, and expected to bring in clients while being harassed daily, there wouldn't be any debate. HR departments, attorneys, and government regulators would be all over it. But because This is sports. Because as a woman in a competitive environment, it gets brushed off. That's not just negligent. That's dangerous. And here's where the hypocrisy gets unbearable. The WNBA prides itself on being a socially conscious league. They speak out on injustice, advocate for change, and wrap themselves in the language of progress. But when it comes to protecting one of their own, one who's carrying the league to unprecedented heights, suddenly it's crickets.
Said that these kind of things, she said that race is, quote, a huge thing, and it boils my blood when people say it's not about race, because it is. Under civil rights law, race-motivated patterns trigger scrutiny even without explicit discriminatory intent.
You can't claim to champion equity if you won't even enforce your own rules. You can't call yourself a sisterhood if you let your brightest sister get targeted game after game. Where are the press conferences now? Where are the tweets, the statements, the stage photos with raised fists? The silence around Caitlin Clark is so loud. It's become its own scandal. This is no longer about miscalls. It's about missed responsibility. The WNBA's job isn't just to host games. It's to ensure every player has the right to compete in a safe, respectful environment. That includes Caitlin Clark. And if they can't or won't do that, then maybe they're not fit to run a professional league at all. And let's not forget the fans. They're not dumb. They're watching the same game tape, reading the same stats, and seeing the same bruises. And now they're asking questions the league doesn't want to answer. Questions like, how many hits does one player have to take before someone steps in? In any other league, this would have triggered an internal review, a suspension, maybe even a league-wide memo. Instead, the WNBA has opted for willful blindness. But ignorance is a defense in court. And if this keeps up, ignorance is going to be very, very expensive. Think about the message this sends to future stars. If this is how the WNBA treats the player who saved their ratings, who brought in new viewers, new money, and mainstream attention, what hope does any rookie have? What kind of culture is being cultivated when the league's MVP is treated like a disposable body? This is the stuff class action lawsuits are built on. One player becomes a symbol, but behind her are dozens more. How many players have suffered in silence? How many fouls went uncalled? How many careers were cut short because the league didn't want to make a big deal? And here's a terrifying thought. What happens if Clark gets seriously injured? We've seen it before in sports. An uncalled foul, a missed landing, a single awkward twist, and suddenly a career's over. And you know what follows that? Lawsuits, congressional hearings, front page scandals, headlines that destroy entire brands. Make no mistake, if Caitlin Clark suffers a catastrophic injury due to the WNBA's refusal to act, the fallout will be generational. Sponsors will flee, trust will vanish, and the league will spend the next decade trying to rebuild what it destroyed in a single season. You don't build a legacy by ignoring your legends, and you don't protect a league by throwing your future under the bus. Right now, the WNBA is doing both, and the people paying the price are the players who give everything to this game. Let's talk about optics. Caitlin Clark is a cultural phenomenon. She's not just a player, she's a walking billboard, a viral highlight, a role model to millions, and yet she's being treated like a liability. If that's not the definition of backward, what is? This should have been a coronation season, a year to celebrate the rise of a new icon. Instead, it's turning into a case study in how not to treat your stars. Every time Clark hits the floor, it's not just her bones that crack, it's the league's credibility. The worst part? This was all preventable. With a single press conference, a single league directive, or a single referee training session, this could have been handled. But now, it's spiraled out of control, and the damage is growing by the day. Fans came to celebrate greatness. What they got was a crash course in gaslighting, selective officiating, and institutional cowardice. The contrast is jarring, and the consequences are mounting. And still, no one at the top is saying a word. But the silence won't protect them forever, because now, legal teams are watching, Congress is listening, and fans are demanding answers. The WNBA thought this would blow over, but it didn't. It's only getting louder. And that's the final warning shot. If the league doesn't fix this now, it may not survive the storm that's coming. Because Caitlin Clark's story isn't just a sports story anymore. It's a civil rights story. a labor law story, a cautionary tale for every league that forgets who really makes them great. Then comes a racial component, something the league hoped wouldn't become public. Asia Wilson said it plainly. Race is a huge thing, and the numbers back her up. Disparate treatment doesn't have to be intentional to be illegal. If Clark's being targeted because of her race, or even perceived differently because of it, the law still applies. Multiple replays show her being hacked, slapped, thrown, and shoved. No whistle, no warning, no consequences. That's not basketball. That's a legal liability waiting to explode. And with each ignored foul, the league gets closer to the edge. Federal law doesn't require proof of direct intent. It only requires a pattern. And Caitlin Clark's treatment is nothing if not a pattern, a disturbing, dangerous, and potentially discriminatory one. The question now is, will the government step in? Even team owners are adding fuel to the fire. Take Sheila Johnson, owner of the Mystics, who downplayed Clark's impact and called for award recognition to be shared. It didn't sit right with fans. Many saw it as jealousy dressed up as diplomacy. And that resentment? It's spreading like wildfire across the league. And what about DeWanna Bonner? Despite her long tenure, questions are now swirling about what she's truly contributed to the league's growth. Critics say she's more known for ducking post-game interviews and quitting on teams than lifting the sport to new heights. Is that the legend we're supposed to protect? Fans aren't buying it. Dick Vitale called it pure jealousy when Clark was left off the Olympic roster. And he's right. The league is letting personal bitterness overrule merit. That's not how championships or movements are built. It's how they collapse. The fallout is now spreading to other players. Brittany Griner, frustrated and boiling over, got ejected for a heated altercation with a referee. That moment wasn't just about her. It was a symptom of a league on the edge. The pressure is mounting, and something's got to give. Let's not forget the fans. In Indiana, they booed Bonner mercilessly. Copper defended her, saying Bonner stayed quiet. But footage proved otherwise. She spoke. She clapped back. The receipts are in. And when the mercury got blown out on the court, Copper claimed they had Bonner's back. But how? They lost. They unraveled mentally. And if booing one player can break an entire team, what does that say about their mindset? What we're witnessing isn't just a scandal. It's a reckoning. A star player is being cheered by millions, targeted by rivals, and abandoned by her own league. The legal system may be the only force left to hold the WNBA accountable. If Congress gets involved, if the DOJ steps in, the league's antitrust protections and broadcast privileges could be stripped away. That's the nuclear option. And it's suddenly on the table. Because in the end, this isn't just about Caitlin Clark. It's about what kind of league the WNBA wants to be. One that protects its stars and grows the game, or one that caves under pressure and destroys itself from within. The clock is ticking, and the world is watching.